We have lots to discuss in today's video, including some off-season rumors regarding the Vancouver Canucks and the future of Thatcher Demko, the Montreal Canadiens, and what they may do to improve the team, and what assets might be available for trade. Plus, what are the plans for the Edmonton Oilers? Could they be looking to make an off-season move to upgrade goaltending? Plus, we have lots of information from the GM meetings in Florida today, including a big update that the 2026 All-Star Game may not be proceeding as planned. We may actually see some changes due to the success of the Four Nations. Plus, we also have a big update regarding Habs prospect Ivan Demidov. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. First, I've got a pretty good story I want to talk about first. We got word today that the Gaudreau family, Meredith and Madeline, so the spouses of John and Matthew, have launched a Gaudreau Foundation. So it's called the John and Matthew Gaudreau Foundation, which is going to be dedicated to the memory of course, Johnny and Maddie. Of course, and it's going to be all designed around giving back. Of course, we know that they were very generous people, certainly very humble guys, especially Johnny, who, of course, was making millions of dollars in the NHL. But by all accounts, from what you can see, of him as a person, that you wouldn't really know that he was, a very wealthy hockey player. But certainly all about helping out whenever possible. So this foundation is going to be designed to kind of give back around youth hockey and then also around hockey families dealing with or facing tragedies. So certainly great to see that Meredith and Madeline are getting together to launch this foundation. Certainly not a surprise at all. I know his Johnny and Matthew's parents are also doing some stuff as well. There's lots going on from a charity perspective, so certainly great to see that they're launching this incredible foundation. I'm sure they're going to do great work. There's some online auctions and things already taking place as well, so if you want to get involved or see what they're up to, certainly check it out. If you're on Twitter, there's lots of information there, or just punch it into Google. You'll see lots of information come up around this great cause. As I mentioned, the GM meetings are going on in Florida today, and we've learned quite a bit from the comments from Gary Bettman today, and lots of NHL insiders, reporters on the scene to ask lots of questions and get lots of intel here. A couple of things. One, CBA talks. We know that the NHL and the NHLPA they're not really, it's not urgent by any means, but they do need to get started soon on a new collective bargaining agreement. We've heard that things are as good between the two sides as they've been in many, many years. And right now, according to what they said today, that the CBA talks are expected to get underway April 1st. I think they've already had some informal talks just to, kind of put a few things on the agenda, so to speak. But April 1st is when they're actually going to aim to start formal discussions. And according to Gary Bettman, he says they hope to do this quick, quiet, and painlessly. So, like I said before, it's a situation where, from a collective bargaining standpoint, the PA and the league are on best terms as they've been in a long time. So I don't think this is going to be too big a deal. I know they had hoped that by the time we get to like the summertime, around the time that the Stanley Cup's going to be awarded, around the draft free agency and all that they will be able to hopefully announce the CBA being extended. So we'll see what happens. But April 1st is the big day. In that regard, we did find out as well that a little bit of details on the early part of the NHL schedule for next year, for 25-26, that the NHL will kick things off on October the 7th. So opening night, October 7th. Of course, we learned the day before about the Global Series going back to Stockholm, Sweden, where we'll see Nashville against Pittsburgh for a couple of games. We also learned as well that the All-Star Game, which was right now is scheduled for 2026 at UBS Arena, the home of the New York Islanders, may not be happening, or at least not, in its traditional form. We don't really know, but all we kind of learned today was that the NHL is not fully committed to holding that event in 2026. And, up until, a little while ago, you wouldn't have heard that because it was pretty much a given that they wanted to have an All-Star Game prior to sending off NHL players to the Olympics. They thought it would be a good way to kind of send off things before the league shuts down for those games. But with the success of the Four Nation Face-Off tournament that we just saw back in February, it's kind of gotten the NHL thinking, wow, what did we create here? Obviously, I don't think you can have the Four Nations every year or anything like that. There's certainly certain countries you would be frustrated with leaving out all the time. So I don't really know what they're going to do. But I think that where you're going to likely see some form of revamped event, it may not be in Long Island. If it's not at UBS Arena, then the NHL will make it a promise that they'll get them some sort of new event in the next couple of years. But yeah, we don't know exactly what things are going to look like. But because of the Four Nation success, that bar has been raised, according to Gary Bettman, and now they're not sure about the All-Star game in 2026 in its current format. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Maybe they have some sort of international All-Star festivities. It would be challenging to do, though, with some countries. So I'm not quite sure how they would figure that out. Maybe it's a skills competition. They could have that. I'm not really sure exactly how they could do things, but it may not be in its traditional 3-on-3 tournament that we've been seeing for the last number of years. So which is good in a way. I'm very happy that the Four Nation tournament had a lot of success because the All-Star game, like I said, has been kind of bland for a while. And the 3-on-3 tournament did make it a little bit more exciting. But I honestly think that for 3-on-3 and the All-Star game format, I think if you're able to go watch it in person, that it's a pretty decent event from all accounts. But to watch it as a spectator on TV or anywhere, I just don't see it being high entertainment value for the most part. So I'm glad to see that they're looking at other options. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in that regard. We also learned today as well that we know the NHL draft is going to be a decentralized type setup this year. It's going to be held in Los Angeles, of course, at a theater. I think it's with the Peacock Theater. And we know that the top 50 prospects are going to be in attendance. I believe Commissioner Gary Bettman and then probably Bill Daly will be announcing the picks. So Bettman will likely do the first round. And then I imagine Daly will take over. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do that. But we know the NHL GMs and their staffs are not going to be in the building. But there's already talk that it may not be something that sticks. There's already, I think, kind of having some second thoughts on this format. And that it's possible that this could even be a one and done. I can't say that with certainty, but it's possible in the near future that we might see them revert back to its other more traditional format where you have the draft floor. And to be honest, I think it can be done. I think the biggest gripe amongst teams and managers, everybody involved, was that because of the NHL calendar, things were just too condensed from the time the Stanley Cup comes out to the award show to the draft, to the free agency. There just wasn't a lot of time and a lot of days in between. If they could manage to tweak things a little bit so that there's a little bit more time, I think they'd be more likely in favor of that. Apparently, some GMs even mentioned that they'd love to see it be held in Montreal on an annual basis. That was the case of what it used to be all many, many years ago. So we'll see what happens, but good news from that perspective. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what it's like from a fan perspective this summer, but I would suspect that going to watch the draft and as the event, it would be a lot more fun to see everybody there. I think it's better for the prospects. You get to go meet your team and your manager and get to meet some of the staff. And there's usually a few of the players around and stuff. So, I honestly, I'm not real thrilled that they're changing the format. I kind of understand from a business perspective how it might be better, but the fact that they're having kind of second thoughts of keeping it that way already and the event hasn't even come yet, just kind of goes to show, what they're thinking. So we'll see. Good news on that front. So All-Star Game draft stuff could be changing, which is, in my opinion, quite a good thing. We saw another big milestone for Sidney Crosby last night as well. Crosby continues to be, one of the all-time greats and leave his name on the all-time record books. The latest milestone he's reached now is he surpassed Wayne Gretzky for fourth place all-time on a list of players with the most points for a single franchise, 1,670 points. So he's got more points as the Pittsburgh Penguin than Wayne Gretzky had as an Edmonton Oiler. So, there's not a lot of players that have, 20 plus year careers for one franchise anymore. It's not super common, and especially amongst the elite level players that, go on to be top performing players for, all those years here as well. So another great accomplishment from what we used to call Sid the Kid, obviously not a kid anymore, but he's certainly leaving his mark on NHL history. A few other updates around the NHL. A couple we'll talk about Montreal here. One, they've signed prospect Lucas Condotta, who's had a good season for the American Hockey League. He gets a 2-year contract extension. And Habs prospect Michael Hage, who enters U.S. college hockey this year with Michigan, is named the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. So certainly a great accomplishment. He's had one heck of a season, which is great to see on his part. And another big update regarding the Habs, of course, we saw them beat Ottawa last night, get themselves into the second wildcard spot amongst the Eastern Conference playoff hunt here. Looking at things, according to like a site like Money Puck, who leaves updates the odds on a daily basis for teams making the playoffs and then winning rounds, etc. They had Montreal quite low. They still only had them, even with a win last night. They were still not even at a 30% chance. But to be honest, I really think that there's a good possibility here that we could see Ottawa and Montreal both make it as wildcard teams. After what we saw with the New York Rangers last night, that effort was pretty bad. I'm not sure that I think they look checked out to me. I'm not sure, but that's just my take on them. I don't think the Rangers are getting in. The Red Wings have been falling lately. The Blue Jackets have been falling lately. And I'm not really sure. The Islanders are still in the mix. We'll see about the Islanders, but they might be the Islanders might be the only other team really that might make a run and make it interesting. We'll see. But I honestly think with the way Ottawa and Montreal have both played, if you look at their records in the last 43, 44 games, they are two of the top teams in the NHL right now. So, it wouldn't be shocking to see them both get in, and we might see as many as 6 Canadian teams in the playoffs. I don't think there's a possibility we can see Calgary and Vancouver both in the Western Conference wildcard race right now. They're both involved with that. Like I said, Edmonton, Winnipeg are pretty secure. Toronto's pretty secure. So we'll see. Could be interesting, very much for sure. But Montreal, I talked about yesterday, could they get Ivan Demidov back either at the end of the regular season, or could they possibly get him on their roster? If they did make the playoffs, could he join them during the playoffs? There was some comments from Elliotte Friedman on the podcast yesterday, and it sounds like what we're hearing today between several other reporters kind of chiming in. I think that a lot of those comments were kind of taken out of context. I know I went back and I listened to the podcast again, and you hear him say that he, people in Montreal are quite confident things are going to work out and all that. And I don't think that just the way Elliotte spoke, I think it kind of left it open to make you maybe think he meant end of the season. But I think what he was really meaning is that more so in the summer, to get signed for next year. Looking at things today and what we're hearing and getting updates out of his contract and all that, Demidov is under contract in the KHL until May 31st. And also updates out of that league as well. They're nearing the end of their regular season, get ready for playoffs here soon. And it sounds like SKA is going to be scratching and benching him. He's might not even playing. He might even get sent down to the lower level. He's their leading scorer as well, which is kind of mind-boggling. It's kind of weird. Their comments was that they might be able to play a more physical style. I don't know. This just seems extremely bizarre. Some that are saying that Demidov's just kind of accepted what he has to go through in order to put in his time there before he can sign with Montreal. But considering his contract's not up until May 31st, I think we're at the earliest going to see a summertime signing, and he'll join them for next year. So I honestly think, and maybe I'm a little bit guilty of that as well, but the comments by Elliotte Friedman on the podcast yesterday, I just think we're a little bit, just the way he worded things, just taken a little bit misinterpreted, we could say. So I don't think he meant what a lot of people thought he meant. So yeah, not looking good for Demidov to join the Canadiens in any time during this regular season, or if they do make the playoffs during that time frame. And it will be afterwards. pretty much 100%. Now, on the rumor mill, we got 3 teams we want to take a look at. I know there's some talk about the future of Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. I know Patrick Allvin, the GM of the Canucks, recently spoke with NHL insider Pierre LeBrun, and LeBrun asked him about the fact that they signed Kevin Lankin into a fairly lucrative contract and what that might mean for the future of Demko in Vancouver. Of course, he's got 1 year left on his contract, and Allvin kind of didn't really... To me, he had an opportunity to give Demko like a ringing endorsement and be, emphatic that he's going to be back. He didn't do that, but at the same time, he did kind of, make it known that it's not a given that he goes. But, it raised a lot of eyebrows when they signed Lankin into that deal. Of course, they still have, Shelov's in the mix here as well. I guess a part of it might depend on how they feel about him. Do they want to let Demko ride out the rest of this contract? Right now, it's, he's still dealing with injury. We don't know exactly when Demko is going to be returning. He shouldn't be too long by the looks of things. I believe he was at practice here recently, so that's promising. But, Allvin did make comments to the fact that it's possible, given with the cap rising and what we're seeing other teams do, that they could keep both. He left the door open for that possibility. But like I said, to me, it's just if he was, really sold on doing it, he would have been a little bit more emphatic with his comments, and he wasn't. Again, you also don't know a lot about the health of Demko. So as much as, he's a very, very talented goaltender, definitely a top 10, if not a top 5 or 6 when he's on his A game and he's healthy. Our team's going to want to trade for him with his injury history. That's a big question. I mean, I'm sure the Canucks would probably love to, maybe reallocate that money to other areas. We still don't know what they're doing with guys like Suter and Besser. Is Brock Besser going to get re-signed? He had a 3-point night. Is Brock Besser kind of back in the mix here? Can he work himself into a contract? I know I've seen some say that if he's looking for $8-9 million, that there's no way Vancouver's going to sign him for that kind of money. That if he wants to, the way he's played more of a secondary support person that, if he wants to sign for $6 million, then maybe that's an option for him. But if he's looking for that extra couple $1 million a year that he might be able to get elsewhere as a free agent because he has been a 40 goal scorer now in the NHL, that might be something that they're probably not willing to do. So we'll see about Besser. Demko, it's hard to say, right? It's hard to imagine another team picking him up and given that history. But I think it's definitely more than fair to ask if his time in Vancouver is coming to a close and if Vancouver will indeed look to move on here. TVA Sports as well as Eric Engels both made mention recently in recent articles about offseason plans for Montreal, that targeting a top 6 center and number 2 center preferably to play behind Nick Suzuki will likely be their top priority, if you will, for making any offseason moves that, likely in the trade market, possibly in the free agent world, but more likely going to have to be somebody that they trade for. We've heard comments from GM Ken Hughes commenting to the fact that they don't want to overpay top free agents. So, if you look at some of the big signings we've seen, say in the last even 7-8 years, even when John Tavares went to Toronto, a lot of people are looking back on that, and he's been a great leap, don't get me wrong. But has he put up the numbers to be an $11 million player? It's risky, right? You do normally have to overpay to bring a player in like that during free agency. And Hughes just made it perfectly clear that they want to be very careful in that aspect of things. So that's why I think a trade for a younger centerman, preferably somebody who's either already signed or somebody they feel they can sign to a mid-range extension, would be in their best interest to go after. Ideally, when they went after Kirby Dach, I think that's what they thought and hoped they were getting. Things have not worked out with him because of his injuries that he's suffered here in the past couple of years, and then some inconsistencies, which probably is fair to say go along with those injuries, as well as those fact that he's missed so much time. And it's hard to be on top of your A game when you're out of the lineup so much, right? So in all honesty, I wouldn't be shocked if Dach was a player they also look to maybe move on from. But again, given his injury that he's rehabbing right now, and the history that he's had the past couple of years, I think that might be challenging for them to do. But the article here from TVA Sports does reference the fact that they've got multiple first-round picks. They've got prospects like Logan Mailloux, as well as even Michael Hage, they might consider parting with if they get themselves, a number 2 center, say in that 22, 23-year-old range where they can get locked up for 5-6 years. They might be willing to give up some major assets to make that happen. I mean, like I said, the reports indicated that they were very much in on Dylan Cousins before he ended up going to the Ottawa Senators. So they were clearly looking for that same type of player that Ottawa was. Ottawa already had Josh Norris, but was looking to change things up. So certainly, it makes sense that they had similar needs here as they both continue to develop and get better. And like I said, try to get themselves to be playoff teams this year. And with Montreal, being in the mix right now, like I said, and I think they have a decent chance of getting in. If they can get in without upgrading that spot, should be even better next year. But, would you move assets like Mailloux or Hage or a first rounder if it means getting a 22, 23-year-old really solid top 6 centerman to join that group and play behind Nick Suzuki? It certainly sounds like a reasonable something they can do, but let me know what you think in the comments. The Edmonton Oilers are also expected to address goaltending in the offseason. The Edmonton Journal, when David Staples referenced Oilers reporter Bob Stauffer saying that on his radio show that he definitely expects that goaltending will be something they look at in the offseason. Now, of course, if they go on to win a Stanley Cup, maybe they don't. Maybe they stick with Skinner and Pickard, but especially they expect them to bring in a veteran guy who can compete with Pickard and challenge him. Maybe they end up in a situation where a number 3 goaltender ends up going on waivers, depending on who wins the battle through training camp. It's hard to say, but if you look around the NHL, there's definitely going to be some names out there that are going to be looking for probably shorter-term contracts that have, veteran status, that are, very much experienced and able to solidify things and kind of stabilize. Looking around, like Freddie Anderson in Carolina is a name, but I mean, to me, he's probably looking for a starting role. He's probably not their guy. I know Jake Allen in New Jersey is most likely not heading back there, so he could be an option. Somebody of that stature, that nature would be what they would be targeting. So we'll have to wait and see what they do, but certainly interesting to see. At some point here, you got to think the Oilers are going to look into it, especially with the rising cap. But the other big thing for the Oilers this offseason will be getting an extension done for Connor McDavid, which could be, an absolutely massive payday. After getting Draisaitl done last year, now it's McDavid's turn. So it should be one of the largest deals we've ever seen in that case. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.